Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for coming out to our first official briefing here in the Brady Room. I was going to start with a little recap of the inauguration, but I think we've covered that pretty well. The President has been honored to receive tremendous support from union working men and women on Election Day, and he's dedicated to growing and deepening their support. And he made it a priority to meet with these union workers on our working day one here in the White House. The offshoring of American jobs and lack of economic growth in recent years has hit American workers particularly hard, and the President's top priority is to retain and attract American jobs, which have already seen happening through his actions on Carrier, Sprint, General Motors, and so many more. At 5 o'clock, the President will host a bicameral bipartisan meeting with leaders here at the White House that will include the Vice President, the Senate Majority Leader, the Senate Majority Whip, the Senate Minority Leader, the Senate Minority Whip, the House Speaker, the House Majority Leader, the House Democratic Leader, the House Democratic Whip, the White House Chief of Staff, our Chief Strategist, Chief of Staff to the Vice President, and Chiefs of Staff from those respective offices. The purpose of the meeting is to get the President's agenda moving through Congress. The American people are frustrated with the lack of progress here in Washington, and the President wants no delay in addressing our most pressing issues. He's taking every step opportunity to forge strong bonds with congressional leaders on both sides of the aisle. One of the other subjects that's sure to come up is the status of his nominees during this meeting. It's important to note that at this point in 2009, President Obama had 7 of his nominees confirmed on day one and 5 more in the first week. As it stands today, we have 2. Democrats even held up the confirmation of CIA Director Mike Pompeo, needlessly leaving one of our most important national security agencies without its top leader on day one. It's time for Senate Democrats to stop playing political games with the core functions of government and to allow President Trump's unquestionably qualified and talented group of cabinet nominees to get to work on behalf of the American people. As you know, we're all about big viewerships and large audiences here. So I want to tell you about an effort that we're undertaking here in the press briefing room to offer up more access to a group of journalists from around the country. Beginning later this week, I'm excited to announce that we're going to have 4 what we call Skype seats live here in the briefing room. This will open up the briefing to journalists who live beyond 50 miles of the Washington, D.C. area and to organizations that don't currently have a hard pass. As always, any organization is welcome to apply for a day pass, but we're excited to open up into the field and fold here a diverse group of journalists from around the country who may not have the convenience or funding to travel to Washington. I think this can benefit us all by giving a platform to voices that are not necessarily based here in the Beltway. The President's a very successful businessman and negotiator. He's going to sit down and work with Congress to get the best deal possible for American businesses so that they can hire more people and we can expand and we can grow the economy. And I think that's what his focus is going to continue to be, is how do we create a tax and regulatory environment that grows the economy and benefits the American worker. So it's not just about creating more jobs, but it's also about lifting up those jobs through higher wages. And I think that you're going to see a lot more of that, a listening president who's engaged in trying to figure out what policies and actions that he can take, that this government can take, that he can work with Congress to make people's lives better, to make their security better, to make their economic security better. But you're going to see a lot of that. That's who he is. That's what he did during the transition, and I think that's what he's going to do going forward. It's an honor to do this, and yes, I believe that we have to be honest with the American people. I think sometimes we can disagree with the facts. There are certain things that we may not fully understand when we come out, but our intention is never to lie to you, Jonathan. Our job is to make sure that sometimes, and you're in the same boat. I mean, there are times when you guys tweet something out or write a story and you publish a correction. That doesn't mean that you were intentionally trying to deceive readers and the American people, does it? And I think we should be afforded the same opportunity. There are times when we believe something to be true, or we get something from an agency, or we act in haste because the information available wasn't complete, but our desire to communicate with the American people and make sure that you have the most complete story at the time. And so we do it. But again, I think that when you look net, we're going to do our best every time we can. I'm going to come out here and tell you the facts as I know them, and if we make a mistake, I'll do our best to correct it. But I think that it's as I mentioned the other day, it is a two-way street. There are many mistakes that the media makes all the time. They misreport something, they don't report something, they get a fact wrong. I don't think that's always to turn around and say, okay, you are intentionally lying. I think we all try to do our best job and do it with a degree of integrity that are in our respective industries.
You'd like to make or clarifications on what you said on
I mean,
Saturday?
well, ask away, Jonathan.
I mean, just for instance, I don't want to get into relitigate the whole issue, but like, just take one, like the issue of Metro ridership. You made a statement about.
We did,
Metro
and at the
ridership.
time, the information that I was provided by the inaugural committee came from an outside agency that we reported on. And I think, knowing what we know now, we can tell that WMATA's numbers are different. But we were trying to provide numbers that we had been provided. That wasn't like we made them up out of thin air.
Do you stand by your statement that was the most watched inaugural address in history?
Sure, it was the most watched inaugural. When you look at just the one network alone got 16.9 million people online. Another couple of the networks, there were tens of million people that watched that online. Never mind the audience that was here, 31 million people watched it on television. Combine that with the tens of millions of people that watched it online on a device, it's unquestionable. You know, we had a tweet go out about Martin Luther King. Think about how racially charged that is. And someone rushes out and says to the entire press corps that the President of the United States has removed the bust from his office. Think about what the signal. Hold on, please.
Himself and apologize.
No, he actually applies to, quote, my colleagues. That's the exact quote. Okay? That quote, that report got tweeted out around. And to report, where was the apology to the President of the United States? Where was the apology to millions of people who read that and thought how racially insensitive that was? Where was that apology? And I think that over and over again, there is this attempt to go after this president and say, well, that can't be true, and that's not right, and the numbers weren't there, and there's a rush to judgment every time. And it's a two-way street. We want to have a healthy and open dialogue with the press corps and with the American people about what he's doing to help this country and to unite it. But at a time when he's trying to unite this, and he keeps talking about uniting this nation, bringing people together, and then a tweet goes out in a pool report to, a few thousand people, saying that he removed the bust of Martin Luther King, how do you think that goes over? I think he has a healthy respect for the First Amendment, and this is what makes our country so beautiful, is that on one day you can inaugurate a president, on the next day people can occupy the same space to protest something. But he's also cognizant to the fact that a lot of these people were there to protest an issue of concern to them and not against anything. I remember this morning Debbie Dingell was on television, and she's talking about, I don't want to inaccurately quote her. I know Jonathan's a stickler for that. She said, different women were there for different reasons, but they were all there to make sure that their core American values are going to be protected, and I think many people like me were there for positive reasons. And I think the president shares Debbie Dingell's views that there were people that came to the mall, as they do all the time, sometimes in smaller numbers. And so I think he reaches out to him in the way that he started on the night that he won the election, on the way that he did on Inauguration Day by sending a message that talks about fighting for them. But more importantly, I think the president's going to show through action and through success that he's fighting for them and fighting for every American.
In terms of the crowd size issue, why bring that up at the CIA? And why did you come out Saturday afternoon to talk about that? Did he tell you, Sean, I'm upset about this, I want you to come out and
I'm not going to get into conversations that I have with the president, but I will tell you that it's not just about a crowd size. It's about this constant, he's not going to run. Then if he runs, he's going to drop out. Then if he runs, he can't win. There's no way he can win Pennsylvania. There's no way he can win Michigan. Then if he won, he didn't. There is this constant theme to undercut the enormous support that he has. And I think it's just unbelievably frustrating when you're continually told it's not big enough, it's not good enough, you can't win. And hold on, because I think it's important. He's gone out there and defied the odds over and over and over again. And he keeps getting told what he can't do by this narrative that's out there, and he exceeds it every single time. And I think there's an overall frustration when you turn on the television over and over again and get told that there's this narrative that you didn't win, you weren't going to run, you can't pick up this state, that's not, that's a fool's errand to go to Pennsylvania. Why is he in Michigan? How silly. They'll never vote for him. A Republican hasn't won that state since '88. And then he goes and he does it, and then what's the next narrative? Well, it must have been because of this. He didn't win that. And then, people aren't attending your thing. Or John Lewis is the first person to skip his inauguration. Not true. And over again, the MLK bust. I think over and over again, there's this constant attempt to undermine his credibility and the movement that he represents. And it's frustrating for not just him, but I think so many of us that are trying to work to get this message out. And so I mentioned this to Jonathan, but part of this is a two-way street. Like, we want to have a healthy dialogue, not just with you, but with the American people. Because he's fighting for jobs, he's fighting to make this country safer. But when you're constantly getting told that can't be true, we doubt that you can do this, this won't happen, and that's the narrative when you turn on television every single day, it's a little frustrating. And I think that for those people around him, his senior team especially, but so many of the other folks that are either here in the administration, that gave up their time during the transition, they left a job to work for 3 or 4 weeks because they're so committed to having his nominees get through, it's a little demoralizing to turn on the TV day after day and hear, can't do this, this guy's not going to get confirmed, no way they're going to go through. I talked to General Flynn about this again last night. One call talks about 4 subjects, and 4 was to set up to talk about, after the inauguration, setting up a call between President Putin and President Trump. That I don't believe that has been set up yet, because the call was to say, after they did follow up, 2 days ago, about how to facilitate that call once again. So there have been a total of 2 calls with the ambassador and General Flynn. And the second call came, I think it's now 3 days ago, that was to say, once he gets into office, can we set up that call? It hasn't, to my knowledge, has not occurred yet.
Any other conversations between General Flynn and Russian members of the government?
Not that I'm aware of. And when I say that, what I'm saying is, during the transition, I asked General Flynn that whether or not there were any other conversations beyond the ambassador, and he said no. Yeah.
The CIA issue, if I can just last one more. You said that the president disagreed with the characterization of a rift with the intelligence community.
That's right.
Do you dispute, though, his tweet about comparing the intelligence community to Nazi Germany?
No, I think what he was talking about was the process, not the people, and that's a very different thing. Thank you guys, it's been a pleasure. God bless. See you tomorrow.